All right, good morning, everyone. So as Sharon introduced already, I'm Leslie Galgay. I'm Success Manager Diversity with Genesis. I'll get into a little bit about what Genesis is in a second, but first just want to open up by giving the title of our research project that actually concluded in 2021, and it was Exploring Ways to Foster Innovation in Technology Entrepreneurship through increased female participation and immigration initiatives. Sorry. Next slide. So a little bit about Genesis. We like to say at Genesis that we help build amazing companies. We are Newfoundland and Labrador's preeminent innovation hub, and we're really known for our flagship incubator program, which is the Enterprise program. And that actually began over 20 years ago, which not many people really recognize. Since our inception, Genesis has expanded its programming to support startups right from the ideation stage, so a pre-incubator program that we have called Evolution, all the way to scaling businesses. So we're looking at third-year ventures who are sometimes already making $1 billion plus in annual reoccurring revenue. And we are really on a mission to create economic wealth for the province by developing and supporting technology entrepreneurs. Next slide. And you can pop ahead to the next slide. So the research question that we had was, what impact will the creation and expansion of targeted and innovative programming have on reducing barriers to entry for marginalized groups in the technology sector, and therefore increasing the number of companies with female and/or immigrant founders in Newfoundland and Labrador over a 3-year span? So we looked at the period between 2018 and 2021. Next slide. Why is this important? Why was that research question important not only to Genesis and NLWIC, but to the province of Newfoundland and Labrador? Well, we know that entrepreneurship is important to the economy and its diversification. Yet Newfoundland and Labrador is significantly below the national average in terms of propensity to start a business. And when we look at immigration and the participation of women entrepreneurs more specifically, we know that immigration is important to the health of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We need that diversity of thought. Newfoundland and Labrador actually leads the Atlantic provinces in growth in self-employment of women, which is phenomenal. And Atlantic Canada leads the country. So really, if you extrapolate, what we're saying is that Newfoundland and Labrador actually leads the country in terms of the propensity for self-employment of women. We have the momentum, and we really need to, showcase that to the rest of the world. And if we kind of boil that down to the tech industry, tech is currently a $1.6 billion industry with significant local growth. We've seen really fantastic success stories. We have the opportunity to build on that momentum to attract more people to start up here. So why not? Why not do something about it? Through our research, we identified a number of barriers that women founders and immigrant founders said were preventing them from either starting a technology company or expanding a technology company. And it's really important to note that there's a ton of intersectionality. So there's really only 2 areas that are siloed amongst women founders and immigrant founders. Women founders said that lack of role models was actually a really big barrier to entering the technology industry. So there weren't enough people out there talking about their successes and failures to really encourage them to give it a try. They also mentioned lack of connections and networks, lack of knowledge about what technology industry is and isn't, access to funding, and a lot of intrinsic factors. So when we talk about things like imposter syndrome, insider-outsider dynamics, not feeling like they really identify or belong in the industry. On the immigrant founders front, one of the barriers that wasn't identified with our research with women founders was limitations in service support and infrastructure, a lot around language training, immigration support, and whatnot. The rest of the barriers overlapped quite significantly with the research we found with the women founders, Again, lack of knowledge, access to funding, intrinsic factors like not feeling like they belong, and lack of knowledge about what the industry is and isn't. Next slide. All right, so the most important part, what did we do to address these barriers? So barrier one, lack of role models. We introduced a speaker series to share stories of inspiration and advice, which we found to be feedback to be really phenomenal. People want to hear those stories. They want to be inspired by people. They need to have advice. Storytelling is really an effective method for doing that. We developed a Women in Tech peer group, peer networks, mentoring, advice, again, that common theme, having someone else to talk to, having a group of people that where you identify that you belong and you felt you had that psychological safety. We also held a You Are Here virtual event with the Association for New Canadians, sharing stories of immigrant entrepreneurs. Again, building on that storytelling theme, inspiring and sharing advice. Barrier number two, connections. Again, really important to build your local networks. So we provided connections in terms of hosting events, but also providing very direct and intentional connections for people. Barrier number three, knowledge. We tried to curate presentations from industry partners. So instead of recreating the wheel, really bringing together the people who had the knowledge and sharing and disseminating that as much as we possibly can. Next slide. On the funding side, at Genesis, with the help of the NLWIC, we implemented a microfund for all companies within our portfolio. And we broke that out into further funds as well, helping with professional fees, travel funds, made some really good connections on the VC and angel network side. On the intrinsic factor side, a lot of leadership development, intercultural communication training, just a culture of belonging at Genesis to make people feel like they belong in the space and empowering them to reach their full potential. And then on the service support side, so we have a dedicated success manager at Genesis for the diversity portfolio, which happens to be me. We provide a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging education and training for Genesis stakeholders and companies. We're really enhancing that collaboration amongst the ecosystem. So at the end of the day, we're seeing an increase. The impact is that we now have a 42% representation of immigrant founders within our portfolio, 33% representation of women founders, which is up from 0% 5 years ago. Next slide. Probably won't get to the next slide, but everyone will have this to look at after. 25 plus jobs created, which we're up to probably 35 right now, and about 2.5 million in annual reoccurring revenue back into the Newfoundland economy. And here's some great success stories that we've had. Granville Biomedical, Milks to Brew, and Castor all doing phenomenal work. We have three actually, women founders, co-founders there, and 2 immigrant founders. So fantastic representation. Thank you.